questions, you can send them to Craig and he'll answer them. You know, he'll chat you. Use the chat function for that. So if you're having trouble, with something, he's happy to answer your questions.
Well, Julie, that we are going to take care of making sure that everyone gets in their breakout groups.
Yes, we'll get to that.
So,
yes, right.
So no need to worry about that.
Right. Okay. All right. So, we're not going to go around and introduce ourselves because there are too many of us, which is a very nice problem to have. But this is a cooperation between Ashby Village and San Francisco Village, which Rochelle Lefkowitz and Bill Haskell started last December. And this is the culmination, or at least the most recent culmination of it. So instead of introducing ourselves individually, if you are from San Francisco Village, raise your hand. Okay, remember we do have two screens here if you're trying to get a sense of how many people are from which village. Okay, and if you're from Ashby Village, raise your hand. Okay, so nice. We have representation from both villages. And is there anybody here who's not from either of the villages, but from somewhere else? Allegra and Marvin Snow, I see you have your hands up. Is that because you are from a different village? Allegra?
No, San Francisco Village.
Okay, and Marvin? Marvin?
He has to unmute.
Yeah, unmute.
Yes, I'm from Climate Berkeley. I'm not.
Okay, great. Welcome.
Villages.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is what the agenda looks like. We are going to see a lovely video, which Bill Haskell will introduce you to, and hopefully it will inspire and energize you. And then we're going to have a report back from each of the Friday Climate Talk groups, from each of the reporters, a brief report back just to kind of jog our memory and help us in our very final decision about which group we want to caucus with. I don't know where that word came from, but okay. And then we'll go into our breakout groups, and Craig will explain how we'll get into them when we get to that point. And in the breakout groups, we'll be talking about what we've done or are thinking of doing, what barriers we've encountered, what support we think we need. We'll come back, report back. There's a brief poll we're going to do, and then we're going to hear what we think the next steps are going to be. So unless somebody has a pressing question, I think we will move on to Bill and his introduction of the video. Okay. Okay. So fine. Thank you for that information. All right. So Bill.
Thank you, Julie. This is called Changing Climate Together. And while many of you have seen a lot of videos with Greta Thunberg and other people, this one is so on point that it was almost shocking, so on point for us. And you're familiar with the speakers, but I'll just give you a brief introduction. Greta Thunberg is an 18-year-old Swedish environmental activist who's internationally known for challenging world leaders to take immediate action on climate change mitigation. David Attenborough is a 95-year-old English natural historian. He's advocated for restoring planetary biodiversity, limiting human population growth, shifting to renewable energy, reducing meat consumption, and setting aside more areas for natural preservation. And the third speaker is the controversial Elon Musk. He is 49 years old. He's a business magnate. You all know him as the CEO of Tesla, and he's the founder of SpaceX. And in this capacity, he's concerned with sustainability and why people need to become more conscious of natural resources and having a sustainable future. So when you watch this video, and later when you break into those breakout groups and you think about or consider what's getting in your way, remember this video. We all have to-do lists, and it's easy to get caught up in those things, but we need to put this on the top of the list. So Craig, why don't you show the video now?
Okay, sharing screen and playing.
Uh-oh, the sound's not on.
Yeah.
Oh. You can't hear the sound?
No.
No,
Oh, man.
I was going to say at the beginning of this meeting that we've gotten very fancy with some of the technology that we're using today. And, you know, it doesn't always work. So it'll be what it is. But go ahead, try again, Craig.
Okay. I guess I'll turn off my headphones.
and I guess this is also a reminder that if at first you don't succeed, try again.
Correct.
Us. You know, when we look back on these days in the future, we want to be able to say that we did the actions that were right, the actions that were important. Because I think it's very difficult to say, you know, if you go say 20, 30, 40 years in the future, you know, what do you say to your kids or your grandkids?
The year 2078, I will celebrate my 75th birthday. If I have children, maybe they will spend that day with me. Maybe they will ask me about you. Maybe they will ask why you didn't do anything while there still was time to act. You say you love your children above all else, and yet you're stealing their future in front of their very eyes.
Scientists all say that these bad things are going to happen. It's like 97%. So like say, well, to your grandkids or kids, like, well, did nobody tell you? No, it's like, no, everyone was telling us. So why didn't you do anything? What's the answer? I think it's very important that we do something.
What we do now profoundly affect the next few thousand years. We can create a world with clean air and water, unlimited energy.
I've been put on this planet to protect wildlife and wilderness areas, which in essence is going to help humanity. I want to have the purest oceans. I want to be able to drink water straight out of that creek. I want to stop the ozone layer. I want to save the world. And you know, money's great. I can't get enough money. You know what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to buy wilderness areas with it. Every single cent I get goes straight into conservation. Guess what, Charles? I don't give a rip whose money it is, mate. I'll use it and I'll spend it on buying land.
You only speak of green, eternal economic growth because you are too scared of being unpopular. You only talk about moving forward with the same bad ideas that got us into this mess, even when the only sensible thing to do is pull the emergency brake. You are not mature enough to tell it like it is. Even that burden you leave to us children. But I don't care about being popular. I care about climate justice and a living planet. Our civilization is being sacrificed for the opportunity of a very small number of people to continue making enormous amounts of money.
Nature has been largely predictable and stable. Now, in the space of one human lifetime, indeed, in the space of my lifetime, all that has changed.
We're running an experiment, which is to see what the CO2 capacity of the oceans and atmosphere is before Earth gets cooked. I don't think that's a wise experiment. That experiment, let's say that experiment is 99% likely to show that CO2 is no problem, but 1% likely to show that it's going to cook the planet. I don't think we want to take that 1% chance. It's just not smart.
The Holocene has ended. The Garden of Eden is no more.
There's no question that at a certain level, it will destroy the Earth, or destroy large portions of the Earth. The question is just, what is that level? And how soon do we stop pumping vast quantities of CO2 into the atmosphere? Given that oil and even coal are a finite resource, it doesn't seem to make sense that we would run that experiment when we have to get off them anyway, because they're simply finite.
Until you start focusing on what needs to be done, rather than what is politically possible, there is no hope. We cannot solve a crisis without treating it as a crisis. We need to keep the fossil fuels in the ground, and we need to focus on equity. And if solutions within this system are so impossible to find, we should change the system itself. We have not come here to beg world leaders to care. You have ignored us in the past, and you will ignore us again. You have run out of excuses, and we are running out of time. We have come here to let you know that change is coming, whether you like it or not. The real power belongs to the people.
Wow.
As I said, remember this video.
Yes.
If it was hard to hear, if you'd like, we can send you the link to this so that you can listen to it on your own again.
And remember, you know, if you're having trouble hearing, you can turn on the closed captions, which is okay.
I would appreciate the link, Bill. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll send it out.
Okay.
I already saw the film twice.
Okay, does anybody have anything that they would like to say about what we just saw? Something really quick? Okay.
I think it was wonderful to see it again. I've seen Greta talk before, and it's gratifying to see someone tell the truth right up front and, you know, say, get off your butts, you know, all that.
Right. It certainly is inspiring to us here today. She said, you know, you've run out of excuses and we're running out of time.
Exactly.
Something to keep in mind as we figure out how we want to move forward. Steve, do you have your hand up? You're on mute.
No, I'm just right now I think it's one of the educational channels is running the 3 hours of Greta, her 3 talks, and I was just looking for the backup on that, which channel.
Okay, well, put it in the chat if you find it. Okay, what we're going to go on to do now is to hear a very brief report out from each of the 5 Friday talk groups. And just to refresh your memory, if you don't remember this, we had the big convening in March, and then people said they felt like they hadn't had enough time to hear in depth what they could do locally with these organizations. They wanted to hear more information. They wanted to have a chance to interact with the organizations about and ask questions. So we had these Friday morning talk groups, which I think really accomplished those objectives. And now we're going to hear just some highlights of what happened at each of those talks. So we'll start with Nancy Zinn, who's going to talk about the 350 Bay Area, which was the first group, the first Friday group. So Nancy.
Okay. I'm going to talk to you about 350 Bay Area. This was presented to us by Nan Farley. 350 Bay Area is a grassroots group organized in 2012 by retired persons concerned about climate change, specifically carbon pollution. And the title refers to scientists' establishment of optimal levels of CO2 as 350 ppm in the atmosphere. At the time of the measurement, it was 450. Currently, it sits at 412. So some progress has been made. 350 Bay Area focuses on helping develop and support large-scale policy change through local and state legislation by doing research and sharing the information with the legislature and the public. They have a paid staff of 4 and a core group of 50 volunteers. And there are locations of 350 in the East Bay, San Francisco, Marin, Sonoma, and then the peninsula, each with an individual focus. Ms. Farley outlined their programs and their various associated activities. Thus, the fossil fuel resistance program brought out even pre-COVID, many protesters supporting no coal, COAL, Richmond. The legislation program research contributes to the development of laws to counter specific causal problems. Climate emergency response to crises such as refinery fires. The Education Allies Group supports the Speakers Bureau. Divestment works to encourage businesses to move their capital out of fossil fuels. Many of the people attending raised a variety of issues. How could programs and volunteers work during COVID shutdowns? Well, perhaps that won't be a problem in the future, but she described their digital access, such as fun events, working online, meeting legislators on Zoom. What kind of research possibilities were available? And Ms. Farley noted that there is lots associated with preparing legislation, offering guidance and expertise. The group's strengths were questioned, and the major offerings of SF Speaks, which is their Speakers Bureau, taking complex issues, distilling information to talking points for 350 Bay Area representatives, for individuals to take action. What are some of the major issues addressed? That includes getting and distributing information regarding state issues, such as the construction of new all-electric buildings, decarbonizing old buildings, eliminating carbon-based public transportation. What are some of the East Bay opportunities? Raising local awareness of the refinery corridor, oil spills, fires, already mentioned No Coal Richmond. What about overlap with other groups with similar concerns? 350 Bay Area is committed to work with these groups and share information. Does the group monitor progress in CO2 reduction in Bay Area? If so, how is that done? Apparently, 350 monitoring is done on specific agencies regarding carbon neutral implementation. They have a 10-year plan defining what's needed to track how they do and how they respond. As for volunteer opportunities, Ms. Farley suggested forming a local group around one specific issue, working on research to support grant applications to corporate organizations, helping to develop press strategy for wider public awareness, helping with materials preparation for public meetings and for elections. She asked us to think about our time availability in order to make a commitment and what can be done on a regular basis. This works best. Small amounts of scheduled time add up. She also left us with a number of places that we can check out online if we have further questions.
Perfect. You did it in less than your allotted 5 minutes. So I will warn you when you have only 30 seconds left in your 5 minutes, but I didn't have to warn Nancy, so that was not a problem. Okay. The other thing I want to point out is we do have a resource page that has the notes and resources from each of these Friday morning climate events, and we'll tell you at some point before we leave you today how to access that if you want to look that up. So, all right. So remember, this is your chance, your final chance to figure out which one of these groups you'd like to meet with when we break into small groups. The next group that we're going to hear from is Active Allies, and that is Bruce Johnson.
Hello. So we met with the Active Allies small breakout on the 16th of April. And we were joined from that organization by Felix Kramer, who's kind of the elder founder, along with Anna, Michelle, Jeremy Jones, and Jillian Lee from the organization. Basically, Active Allies describes themselves, and I'll quote their sort of mission statement. They say, "We're advancing climate action and justice through youth employment and intergenerational collaboration. We older people connect with young adults who can supply the energy, vision, and leadership to save us. We can all work together to defend, restore, and regenerate our communities and our world." Kind of one thing that impressed me was Costanza Gonzalo, who had presented at our March large meeting, wasn't there by April because she had already gone on to fellowship with Climate Corps or another organization, kind of demonstrating to me that, here we go. One of the people who initially presents to us a month later has been launched into a role as an activist leader in another organization. I kind of have felt that Active Allies is one of the more entrepreneurial Silicon Valley type of all the organizations that we saw. Felix presented it there in a formative stage. They're kind of wide open to things. And they're kind of an incubator for young folks who are coming along and who want to get involved in established jobs in the climate justice movement. And so they went on and talked about 3 key startup projects that they have. One is called Grow Better, which is a project to support the transition of farms and communities to regenerative agriculture. And the initial goal of this project is to pilot and demonstrate the benefits of sustainable agriculture in a rural community in the Central Valley of California. A second startup project is called Cal Cars Squared. And this is a project with the ultimate goal of converting millions of gas guzzlers to plug-in vehicles. And the initial starting point there is to start with conversion of tractors and pickup trucks within the Central Valley community that becomes part of Grow Better. And the third project was recruiting people to work in Active Allies, the organization itself, to bring in networked people to support youth employment for climate action and justice. Felix, I think, has had a pretty active involvement in startups as an engineer over a number of years, worked with a lot of green energy projects during that time, and is connected to folks, and he's working on bringing them in and inviting more of us into this as well. We talked about some of the key roles that older allies can play in the organization, and they kind of have 3 labels. One is sponsors, another is mentors. Oh, am I running out of time? Oh, okay, sorry. Sponsors, mentors, and advisors. And the sponsors would be folks who could help donate money to support the salaries of the young climate activist leaders who are working on projects within the organization. And those donations might support somebody actually in Active Allies or in another organization. Mentors would be people who could provide guidance and support for the young activists who are managing the projects that Active Allies is supporting. And advisors to Active Allies would work primarily to help build networks and connect leaders and teams with others. Felix noted a number of times that Active Allies is very connected to the other organizations that we've heard from, as well as additional climate change organizations. And it's a very cooperative, supportive group who are all working together. Then on one slide, we didn't really get to go into this, but additional roles were mentioned that older adults could play, including project managers, supervisors, partnership directors.
Okay, now you have 30 seconds.
Oh God, okay.
About.
Anyway, sorry, there's a lot more to say, but another thing that people could initially get involved with right away is helping to build a wiki to pull in information about sustainable agriculture, existing state programs, about farm communities in the Central Valley. So anyway, I'll wrap it up there. There's more I could say, but there's a lot to it.
Okay, I did neglect to do something after 350 Bay Area, and I will do it now. Does anybody does anybody want to add anything to what they heard at either 350 Bay Area, or let's take Active Allies first? Any additional key points that were mentioned, or did Bruce pretty well hit them?
I'd like to find out more about that wiki about sustainable agriculture. They're building a website about it?
they're working on a wiki that will to bring together a lot of information that can be used to support this project that they're doing, the name of which was Grow Better, to support a sustainable agriculture in the Central Valley. So yeah, one of the key things is the wiki is a way that we could jump in and help out. So anybody who likes to do
Does
research.
everybody know what a wiki is?
Yeah, what is a wiki?
So do you know Wikipedia, the website?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a
That's
wiki,
a wiki.
would be like an entry on Wikipedia, essentially. That
Oh,
I'm no authority on I mean Rochelle. So Rochelle is married to Felix, who's so Rochelle, you may be able to throw in something here better than I could if you want to go ahead.
So the opportunity is really gathering information. The way Wikipedia works is through volunteer contributors to it. So all of the facts are checked by other volunteers. All of the information that's in a wiki is as if it's an encyclopedia online that is alive and keeps being amended as events change. So that it's an opportunity to really do research and learn from younger people how to do this new form of information gathering and exchange.
I would add it's a kind of group think and group research endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
So we can give you more information about wikis later, but I think that's a great explanation.
No, and it's a lot of fun to do with others.
Okay, anything else about Active Allies? All right, we will now move on to Mary Lanier, who's going to report on Elders Climate Action.
Thanks, Julie. Yes, Elders Climate Action is a national organization. It's been around for 7 years. Our presentation on April 23rd was by Todd Weber, along with support from San Francisco Village member Linda Lewin, who are the co-leaders.
I'm not a co-leader.
He said you were.
I'm not. I'm just a member.
He's a member.
All right. Well, Todd is one of the co-leaders, is how he described it, of Elder Climate Action for the Northern California chapter. So the thing about Elder Climate Action is it is a global organization organized by chapters, and those chapters are local and often very topic based. So there's a lot of opportunities within the organization itself for many different actions. Their mission is to mobilize elders to push for policies to reduce greenhouse gases to a level consistent with life on our planet. And they have like I said, they have organized by chapters, and they have a very active website with a lot of information. You go to the website, which we can send you the link if you didn't get it in the update before, and see what's there, because there's just different sorts of information, whether it's policy and legislation or personal responsibility behaviors, or what's the next activist action that can take place in your area. They have what I think sounds like a really interesting thing to be connected to, called the Climate Action Alert that you can sign up for on the website, and then you would get information about what the next organized activity or information is on the climate action protocol. In California right now, that subchapter is very focused on legislative issues, mostly because there is a lot of bills and activity in the California legislature right now on climate change policies. And there's quite a bit of activity in terms of activism around those policies. Nationally, The group is promoting voting rights for elders. I think this was pretty smart too, in looking to make sure that they mobilize any environmentally interested, sensitive, active elders who have not been consistent voters to get out and vote, in order to obviously enact the policies that will help the mission. So in terms of what you could do, I had 4 things. I think others might be able to suggest other things, but one is to go on their website and find your particular interest in terms of all their groups and get connected to that group. Sign up for the newsletter, sign up for the climate action alert, which is the piece that I was most interested in. You can engage in action on specific bills here in California that's coming up. And I think, Linda, you knew more about that. And then there is also on the website articles and information on personal accountability habits, what you personally can do to help in this mission, whether it's around plastic or solar or electric cars or whatever. You know, there's a lot of specific information about what we as individuals can do in our own daily lives. So I found it very informative, and there's a lot to choose from there because it's such a large organization.
On Mondays, there's a legislative club, and a guy named Bill Murphy talks about all the bills before the legislature, the Senate bills and the representatives' bills. And we write letters.
As Mary mentioned, this is a large organization, and the topic or the presentation that we heard was really focused on the Northern California, or the NorCal chapter.
Right, which is really focused on, so if you're interested in legislative action, writing letters, going to Sacramento, that NorCal chapter would have a lot to offer you.
And if you have a friend who lives in another state and you think you can get that friend interested in climate work, there might be a chapter in that person's state to be.
Correct. Yeah.
And
good
one
idea.
thing I would add is I signed up during the presentation because the sign up link was there, and I was listening, and I thought I'd sign up. I've gotten several things from them already, including one lovely thing for Mother's Day related to Mother Earth, and people had submitted lovely drawings and paintings and all kinds of things. It was very inspiring. So yeah, okay. Anybody else want to add anything about Elders Climate Action?
Yes, this is Frances Gorman, and I attended their NorCal chat session yesterday, and there are a lot of different activities, both with youth. They've just got a whole long list, so it's not just legislative. They've got everybody is involved in different aspects on a local level. So there's an opportunity for you to find people that are interested in whatever activity you would, and there's also support for your coming up with an idea and gathering people to follow up with your own idea. So it's got a lot of flexibility there.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Sierra Club, and Joanne Garner was the reporter for that. So Joanne?
Okay, here I am. Just a little background on the Sierra Club. I think most of you are familiar with the organization, but it was founded by John Muir. Its national headquarters are in Oakland, and it has 14 local chapters: Alameda, Marin, Contra Costa, and San Francisco. Our liaison and the person who did the presentation is Jake. He is the Sierra Club, but not new to climate change issues. He shared with us his own personal focus first, which was the nation's dependence on fossil fuel, especially coal, more specifically keeping coal out of Oakland and Richmond, and particular concern for social and environmental justice, as well as just transitions, which is removing coal dust impact on people living near train terminals and providing training and opportunities for new employment, which is my particular own personal interest. And then in terms of what is the Sierra Club's focus regarding climate change, the concentration at that level is preserving open spaces, working on zero waste, building electrification of vehicles, clean energy, sea level adaptation, and fossil fuel accountability. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to dive on what's the seems to be the East Bay focus, and that's on open spaces, energy and climate, refineries, air quality, climate literacy. Jacob is, I think, going to be a great help and liaison, steering us in the right direction if we need some help. But he did mention that they have advocacy teams that meet once a month on the fourth Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And this is all in the information that has already been distributed, but I'm just rehashing it a little bit for you. The orientation provided there is you learn more about the Sierra Club and the current local campaigns and given tools to take action. You can sign up for the next advocacy team meeting, which is Wednesday, May the 26th at 5:30. And I can share with you Jacob's phone number if you'd like to, or I've got his email address. In terms of specifics, questions asked, I kind of combined the whole thing into one question, which is, I think covered a lot of there was about 3 or 4 questions. But anyway, the question was, how would retraining be provided for those who lose their jobs due to the transition, for example, from fossil fuels to sustainable energy sources? Jacob said that, you know, there's going to be a lot of that retraining plans coming out of President Biden's job retraining plans. But there's also at the state level, which is interesting to me, is that Governor Newsom has issued a mandate to the Office of Planning and Research to develop a roadmap for the state for the development of well-paying green jobs. And this is known as just transition. This is expected to be released sometime in the summer and has a voice in this whole thing. So that to me is very interesting. Anyway, that kind of, I just summarizes what we heard from him.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody want to add anything?
Again? Oh no, it's done it again on me.
Does anybody want to add anything to the Sierra Club report? They've been around a long time.
I'll just add that Jacob was a great presenter, and he was so accessible. I mean, it made a large organization easy to access because he's so present and so good at what he does and such a good communicator.
And he also, when he heard us talking about today's session, he was very interested in the fact that we were going to possibly identify some barriers to getting involved, because he said he would really like to hear about those so that he could address them. So I thought that was quite receptive of him. So, okay, we have one more group, and that is 1,000 Grandmothers for Future Generations, and that's Elaine Warren who's going to report.
There. Okay, so Rochelle Powers was the person who made the presentation for 1,000 Grandmothers, and she explained that the organization is a grassroots, volunteer-driven group of elder women. It was started by a group from Oakland and Berkeley in about 2016.
Elaine, could you possibly get a little closer to your microphone? I think people may be having trouble hearing it. That's much better. And if you can't hear, turn on your closed captions. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you want me to start over?
Go ahead.
Okay. So the group is a volunteer-driven grassroots organization of elder women. It was started by a group in Oakland and Berkeley, and they were supporting Indigenous resistance to the KXL Dakota Access Pipeline in North Dakota. After that, they decided that they wanted to continue their activities in support of particularly indigenous groups in dealing with the climate crisis. So that's their primary focus, and also trying to, through that, shut down the fossil fuel industry. Their way of acting is primarily through direct action, kind of combined with artistic endeavors, I would say. The group has a 6-woman coordinating committee, and then several working groups. There's about 1,000 members with maybe 200 that are active. The groups focus on legislation, art projects, and then their direct nonviolent action. There's groups centered in the East Bay, but also in San Francisco and Marin. And the term grandmothers does not mean you have to be a biological grandmother. It's the indigenous term for any elder woman. They also pointed out that they welcome grandfathers. She gave a great slideshow, which presented some examples of the kinds of activities that they've been involved in. I think that gives the best understanding of the group. So she said that through their work on the Dakota Access Pipeline, they had developed a relationship with the Lakota tribe. And one of those members is Madonna Thunderhawk, who was an activist who occupied Alcatraz to highlight the Wounded Knee struggle. They did a fundraiser through a film event for her. They've been known for blocking streets and painting street murals. She said they're very good at working with the police and irate drivers. In the Bay Area, it's not usually a problem in getting arrested because people are maybe more relaxed here. They also would paint art on the street. They have a large group of people who are interested in doing art projects or making banners. They train people, she said, in how to take direct action in a nonviolent way. And then she gave some examples of the direct action. They demonstrated at the Army Corps of Engineers headquarters in San Francisco to protest the Dakota Pipeline project. They planned protest days in San Francisco to address the global climate crisis. They've attended hearings in Sacramento and in the Bay Area to oppose a deep dredge project of San Francisco Bay that would have brought in larger tankers carrying tar sands. They've joined youth organizations. She mentioned a couple of the youth organizations they've worked with, Extinction Rebellion and Sunrise Bay Area, who are protesting Chevron refinery, both their activities. She mentioned that they've also done a walk in support of the Green New Deal. And their latest activity is to raise funds and send a group to Minnesota to protest what's called Line 3. It's an Enbridge Corporation pipeline project that would bring tar sands from Canada down to Louisiana. It would transport about 1 million barrels of tar sands per day. It would cross the Mississippi River. It would cut through Ojibwa territory in Minnesota. It has to cross about 200 bodies of water. It would emit about the equivalent emissions of 50 coal plants per day. And she says it's totally unnecessary. All the tar sands would be exported to other countries. They've dropped a banner over I-80 to bring attention to this issue. So those are some of the examples of the kinds of activities that they're involved in. She acknowledged that during the pandemic, they could do less of their direct action, but they were still involved in electoral work and legislative actions. And there were just a couple of questions that might be worth highlighting. Someone asked—
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, the status of Line 3 is, she says the president can stop it, but it's about ready to go. They're just waiting for the freeze. So it's a race between court actions and the thaw. And she gave information on how to contact them. They have a web page and a Facebook page, which is in the summary.
Sorry, I can't get this to go off for some reason. Okay, Thank you. Does anybody want to quickly add anything? Bill?
So I want to thank Nancy Zinn, Bruce Johnson, Mary Lanier, Joanne Carter, and Elaine Warren for doing a great job of summarizing. And all of this will be sent out, made available to you with all the resources. And I just want to say that the 5 Friday morning climate talks with Nan Farley for 350 Bay Area, Felix Kramer for Active Allies, Todd Weber, Elders Climate Action, Jacob Klein for the Sierra Club, and Rochelle Towers for 1,000 Grandmothers were all fantastic. And we couldn't have gotten better presenters. So I'm really happy with what was able to be achieved. And I'll stop there.
Okay, so we are now going to break into the groups. And, I have to say, you don't, Rochelle, are you trying to say something? You're on mute. You're muted. Rochelle, do you want to speak? Okay, you're on mute.
Am I on mute? Now I'm off.
You're okay now.
I thought there was a question from Kathy. And she's on mute.
It's not a question, and I wasn't at the talks, so I guess I may be repeating what was said, but I know that when you talk about Sierra Club in the East Bay, I also wanted to just mention, I'm not connected with Sierra Club, but they're active in San Francisco, and a lot of groups are not that active in San Francisco. Furthermore, they have paid staff. That's an important thing. It's important to be a volunteer, but it's important to have backup. And I think I just want to mention that.
Okay. All right. So Bill's going to explain what's going to happen in the breakout groups. Bill and Craig, I guess, will explain that. And then I just want to say that, this isn't a lifetime choice. So we're not going to hold you to your decision. Meet with whatever group you want to, and then you will have opportunities to change your mind at any time if you want to. So, okay, Bill.
So we're going to have 5 breakout groups, one for each of the 5 climate action organizations. And we're going to have a facilitator who will also be reporting back at the end of the discussion. These will be 20-minute groups, and they will talk about actions taken or being considered by all of us. We'll identify barriers, discuss barriers, and propose the next steps that people want to undertake. And then also explore what would be most helpful in terms of ongoing support.
Okay, so that was so now we're going to report back quickly. And what we want to hear is just 1 or 2 actions that have already been taken, any barriers that people identified, and next steps that people want to undertake, and any support that they'd like to hear. So why don't we start with Bill, where are you?
Here, me.
Say which group you were facilitating.
Sure, this was Active Allies, and we had about 6 folks in the group. And I will say that there was a lot of interest in regenerative agriculture, which is one of the topics discussed in the Active Allies organization, especially in the Central Valley. One person wants to be a mentor and support and guide young people. One people wants to do research and help to organize a wiki in regard to issues that are being investigated through Active Allies. Somebody else would like to learn more about what is needed. And so we're going to put that person, who's actually Cora Shaw, in touch with Felix Kramer so she can get more information, and that'll be good. One of people is also interested in research and the wiki idea. And so there was a lot of interest in doing things and getting a little bit more information and the intergenerational platform. What was really interesting was the barriers. To-do lists. People have to-do lists and they get in the way. So that's one. Another one was that people have retired and done volunteer work and gotten enormously involved in that and burned out and need to do something else. And so how much time do we want to spend in front of a computer? That was another one. I think there's the barrier of having a lot of other commitments in personal lives and how that can get in the way. And then one person said simply time and the involvement in time. And one person said no car, but we all said no excuse. And then the last was, what do we want in terms of support? And there were two ideas. One was a general meeting every so often for San Francisco Village and Ashby Village to check in. And then there was a specific desire for a smaller group with Felix Kramer, who's the founder of Active Allies, so we can have ideas spark and things happen and get involved. That's it from me.
So how many people were in your group?
I would say 6, is that about right?
Yes.
And was it a mix of the two villages?
It was, definite good mix.
Okay, good. Okay, Rochelle.
So I was the facilitator of the 350.org group. There were 5 in our group, mostly folks from San Francisco Village. We also were divided between people interested in research and open to doing more advocacy, letter writing, to all the way to marching and protests. That some of the acts that people had taken already, one that stands out was reading a publication called Grist, which is something that I actually have found also really useful and clear and fun to read about climate stuff. And that also, in terms of barriers, the same ones of time and having other priorities. But there was also a barrier that one of us experienced in terms of actually getting information about 350. So I volunteered to connect Judy, in this case, with a way to get past the obstacle course of getting the information she wanted. And that we also wanted to stay in touch and check in with one another.
And frequently or infrequently or what?
Somewhat regularly, but we didn't get to that point yet. We were talking a lot about some of the other issues.
Okay.
What was the name of that publication you mentioned?
It's called Grist, Gris, like Susan, T like Tom, grist.org. And it's just, I really find it the most go-to one about climate change.
And if you have your closed caption on, pay no attention to what they just said the name of the publication was, which was Chris Plot or something like that.
Yeah.
There's some limitations to that.
Yeah,
okay, Meryl.
That's why I spelled it.
Meryl.
Okay. There were 3 in addition to myself. And
he's reporting on 1,000 grandmothers, right?
1,000 grandmothers. So it was a small group. There were 3 in addition to me, and one of whom is already active in 1,000 grandmothers, and 2 who are interested, but they're exploring other organizations as well. So we shared information. They're attracted to the organization because of the focus on indigenous populations and a belief that in a view that indigenous people are connected to Mother Earth, committed to Mother Earth, and that connection with 1,000 grandmothers is of value. Also attracted to their activism, impressive activism in the street, the role of the arts, and so on. The barriers discussed were time. The time, given our age, that we're focused often on family and on ourselves at times when we need to, and concern about commitment. But we learned that from Kathy, who is already a member of 1,000 Grandmothers, that 1,000 Grandmothers is incredibly supportive, very understanding. People leave at times and return. There's never any question about that. Meetings vary in who attends, and so that learning about how supportive the organization is was very helpful to us. I think in terms, since 2 of the 3 are just exploring, we didn't really talk about specific actions that they might take, because exploration is part of the action. Some of the action might be a financial donation if time is a limitation.
Okay.
So is there anything else that came up in our discussion? Joe, Kathy?
Okay, Joanne, we'll move on because we're going to run out of time here. Joanne, where are you? I hope that she was having trouble with her internet connection. Joanne, are you here? Okay, that was the Sierra Club. I will give a report. We'll hope she's going to reappear. I'm going to give a report on Elders Climate Action. There were 9 of us, and we were sort of half and half from each village. People were interested in a broad range of things, particularly I think a lot of people were interested in the legislation that they track. They have a great website. People signed up, they got newsletters. Somebody had already attended an event. Some people had done nothing, but definitely wanted to do something. The organization is going to call new members and see if they can find out a little bit more about what they're interested in so that they can connect them with specific activities that they might be wanting to get involved in. And the group really didn't say, they often said no barriers, but time certainly came up as a problem. Commitment to other organizations. Some people belong to other climate action organizations already. And as far as future support, people did feel like they might want to meet again with the village group. And the Ashby Village folks who have Elder Action as an umbrella organization wanted to to explore how Elder Action could take on getting involved too. And, I guess that would be apply to any of the 5 organizations. So, Joanne, have you joined us? Okay, who was in the Sierra group? Okay, Steve, was Joanne there?
No.
Okay, so she must have lost her internet connection.
We were little lost sheep.
Yeah. Can you tell us how many people were in your group and a little bit about what happened in the discussion?
Sure, we had 3 people. We had Roberta Pressman and Linda Greenberg and myself. And basically, what we said, 2 of us were longtime members of the Sierra Club, but since I missed the presentation they did, I didn't know exactly what they were doing. So I took an action item to get a hold of Jacob or to look into the magazine and find out what they're doing, and then provide it back to Linda and Roberta. And the problem is I need to get Linda's email address, if that's a good way of me.
Okay. I'll put it in the chat.
Yes, great. That would be wonderful. And then, so that was my action item to do, is to find out what they were doing and present it back to both of those folks.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have another little bit of technology here. We decided that we needed to get a little bit of a sense of how people were feeling at the end of this. So Meryl is going to tell us about a poll, a very brief poll that we want you to participate in. And then we're going to have a few closing remarks. So Meryl?
Actually, Julie, Craig is going to.
Okay, Craig. Okay, Craig.
Craig, you're muted.
Okay, never done this before, but I've got a poll up here, and I'm going to launch the poll, which will presumably make it visible to everybody in the chat or in the.
There it is.
And okay, and poll in progress. I don't think there's any time limit on it, so somebody's got to tell me when to click the end poll button and.
Okay, so as you can see, there are 3 questions here, so just answer them as best you can. I think, Craig, you might be able to tell how many people have participated when it reaches a critical mass. Maybe you can tell us.
Someone will have to read them for me.
Yeah, 4 of 29, 5 of 29.
Okay, the first question is, to what extent did the climate action sessions help you learn about local action for climate change? Very helpful, somewhat helpful, not very helpful. Click on one of those. To what extent did the sessions help you identify ways to get involved? Very helpful, somewhat helpful, not very helpful. And finally, as I said, this is a short poll. What kind of support would help you get involved in the future?
All of the above.
I'll click on all three. Ashby Village support group, Ashby Village, San Francisco support groups, updates from the villages, another large group convening in the fall. If you want them all, click them all. All right, and then all you have to do is click on submit, which is the blue button at the bottom. Apologies for the lack of visual accessibility if you're having trouble with this. Okay, so I think we're done with the poll.
Well, except for I want to say thanks for it being a short poll and
Yes, and now actually we are, I think Rochelle has some comments to make to close us out here.
So I wanted to say that before this, I kind of left climate change to my husband to work on. And I was doing stuff in villages and I just didn't feel like I had the time or bandwidth or a way of doing it. And I feel like now I've had the joy of bringing together the two things, villages and climate change. And I wanted to use this time though to say I'm just so thankful to all of you who have come out to do this, to sustain your energy. Thanks to Julie and Meryl and Craig and everybody, especially to Bill, but most especially to each one of you. And if each of us could reach one more person that we got involved in climate work, whether it's from something very specific, like taking you into an electric car to see what it was like, if we each reached out to one person, we would double the amount of energy in these villages that we're part of to doing work around climate. So I just want to encourage each and every one of you to just keep this energy in mind, keep the film in mind, and just take that energy that you pour into our villages, into this realm. We really have to do it.
And Bill, do you have a last comment to make?
Well, this has been a fantastic ride. I would call it a wild ride, at least from my perspective. And I've learned an enormous amount. And I feel like these two villages have come together and there's a lot of interest and curiosity and desire to make a difference in climate change. So I really applaud all of us and I'm happy to be a part of this.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Craig and Meryl, for making the technology work. And we'll see you soon, hopefully.
We'll be back in touch.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you, Julie. You were an excellent facilitator. Excellent job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes,
Thanks, everyone.
thank all of you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you all.